Cleveland's got 5 prospects in the top 100, and 4 of them are shortstops. I got Jeff from LockedOn Guardians to hop on and talk about it.
You are Locked On MLB Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On MLB Prospects, your home for all things minor league baseball. I'm your host, Lindsey Crosby, baseball writer for Sports Illustrated, and thank you for making this your first listen every single day. And we're talking Cleveland Guardians today. Picked to finish third in the Central. I had Jeff from Locked On Guardians on the show. We talked about, obviously, the top prospects. A bunch of them are shortstops. We talked about the outlook for the season, as well as the Jose Ramirez question. Yes, that one. You know what I'm asking about. Check it out. Lindsey Crosby of Locked On MLB Prospects, Jeff Ellis of LockedOn Guardians, here to talk all things Cleveland Guardians. Jeff, how you doing, man?
You know, I don't know if I want to say I'm doing well. I would say right now, my feeling would be nervous anticipation. We were talking a little bit beforehand. I didn't mention my age, but I'm 40. I'm a 40-year-old dude here, and in my lifetime, the only multi-time all-star that this team really kept through their prime was Omar Vizquel. One can make a case for Kenny Lofton, but they traded him away before re-signing him. So, if everything going on with J-Ram, it's honestly something that I've never experienced. I'm used to Hall of Famers leaving. I'm used to Tommy, Ramirez. People forget how good Albert Bell was. He had a degenerative hip where he'd probably have made it impossible for him to not have been in the Hall of Fame. He was, the dude walked more than he struck out while hitting 50 home runs. That just doesn't happen anymore. But I've seen all of them go. The Lindors, and then the only other guy who didn't leave was Grady Sizemore, and that's because he's one of the last guys, one of 5 guys in the last decade. It's him and Braden Webb that were excellent players who injuries ended their career. We just don't see it very often. But yeah, no, I'm optimistic. I'll put it that way.
There you go. I turned on the Jeff Passan Twitter notifications. If we get an extension or trade during this pod, everybody's going to get a live reaction. But so I'm going to save that to the very end, just in case I have more time for news to break. But one of the things that I've obviously paid a lot of attention to is the prospects in this system. And what I love about the Guardians is they've got 5 guys in the top 100. How excited are Guardians fans for these 5 guys, and kind of what's the chatter from the fan base about, Tyler Freeman, a Daniel Espino, or Brian Rocchio?
So it's, it kind of goes around. It's interesting because none of them are, the quote unquote top end guys. And this whole system, we had our round table for the AL Central, and I went to bat that the Guardians have the top farm system in the Central, and almost got laughed out of the meeting. But I was like, guys, Detroit's got about 5 prospects deep. The top 2 is amazing, but there's not depth. In Kansas City, I'm still not sold on all those pitchers. And the Twins, it's they've had a lot of first rounders that haven't worked out. And they look at the Guardians, and you can look at, some places have Cody Morris as in the late teens. And Cody Morris, if he was healthy, could step into the bullpen tomorrow and be their 3rd best reliever. And he's in the late teens and he could start. Now, I've talked about he's lower because of health, but that's what I really like about the system. There's just the downside. We've talked about the 40-man mess probably so many times. My listeners are sick of hearing about it. But they got to give these players opportunities. And it looks like, I gave him a hard time about Gabriel. I'm going to say his name right for once. Any listeners of my podcast know I'm a butcher of names. Arias, he got sent down, and he's clearly the best defensive shortstop they have. But as long as they're going to play Jimenez, he was the centerpiece of the Lindor deal. It's not like he is a terrible choice. It's not all about money there. Steve Kwan looks like he's going to break camp, and he's the dark horse rookie of the year candidate, in my opinion, which again, when I brought that up in the AL Central one, when we're talking about Bobby Witt and Riley Pint, not Riley Pint.
Riley Green
is the Rockies pitcher who just came back after a short retirement. Riley Green and Spencer Torkelson. Even the Twins are we got Royce Lewis who could come. It's but I was Kwan, we'll have to see. Now, any of my longtime listeners know, I am the lowest of the low on Ty Freeman. It's not my profile. It's the same reason I'm not as high on Owen Miller. It's the same reason I was like, let's trade Francisco Mejia tomorrow.
Right.
I don't like contact profiles. I don't like anyone. This is just my personal thing. I don't like anyone where it's like, oh, they've got a plus hit tool, because a decade of doing this has shown me that everyone is just awful. These are family friendly podcasts, so I won't use nasty words, but we're bad at it. We are just, as a community of evaluators, hit tool is not judged correctly. I think we're getting better. We're getting more data that works, but I always bring up on my podcast, the Indians drafted Tyler Naquin, quote unquote, the best hit tool in the draft class by Baseball America and Jim Callis. Now, I've talked about many times, I think Jim Callis is as good as it gets. He's like one of the people who made me care about prospects. So I'm not saying that to rag on him. I'm just saying that's, he is really good, and he labeled him that. And then you go a few years later, Bradley Zimmer, it's the exact same thing. And again, it's not to rag on anyone. Like, these are like, Callis is much better than I am. I don't want anyone to ever think I'm not even approaching his stratosphere. But when someone who is that good can make that statement, and then it's not dead on, it just kind of shows that, like, we don't judge. And it's like, even you fast forward to now, it's like, we should have known Bradley Zimmer had a terrible hit tool. He was playing for the University of San Francisco Friars and striking out 30% of the time. But we're growing and we're advancing. So as a Freeman guy, I mean, maybe I'm going against grain. I know with a lot of people who just see the great contact. He's had 2 labrum injuries in 2 years, and then I need more. I need power. I need walks. I need something other than contact. So Brian Rocchio, I was low on, and he has proven me wrong. That's definitely a humble pie. Eat crow. I was 100% wrong on him. Valera, I think, is the one who gets most people most excited. That you hate to say it's like he's the most interesting hitting prospect since Manny Ramirez, but like, that is coming up with people. I also think that's like not I also don't like that statement, because I'm like, people, you're really short selling how good Grady Sizemore was. And when they acquired him, he was still an A prospect from the Expos. It wasn't like he was a guy who was in the upper minors. And then Spino. Okay, I've been low on Spino. And
I want to hear this. I want to hear why.
From the minute he was drafted, I'm like, he's going to get hurt at some point. Like, that build, that velocity, he is going to get hurt. And then the control issues. And I was like, he is going to be a potentially dynamic multi-inning reliever, but I don't think he can hold up. Now, I read the piece by Eric Longenhagen, this piece about how he's a unicorn, and essentially saying like what he saw, Espino could pitch in the majors this year. He was like, he could help this team by midseason. Now, it also got in my head. I'm like, I don't know, as we evolve in prospect, I'm probably talking too much, but like in the prospect game, it's like a decade ago, we had like Jabba Chamberlain. Maybe it was 2 decades ago. Like, are pitchers going to allow themselves to enter that role? Like, they have to know, if you go from a starter to a reliever, you're giving up tens of millions of dollars. Is there any pitcher who's going to like not fight that tooth and nail anymore? Like with the Guardians, I mentioned Francisco Mejia, like he fought tooth and nail to not get moved off of catcher, because he knew that would be a more valuable position with his outcomes. So, I'm lower on Spino. He's probably like, if I were to really sit down and hammer out mine, he's probably somewhere like 4 or 5 in the system for me. Because I still think he's a high risk, and it's a non-traditional build. I know the third pitch, like it's interesting how I'll read one report and someone's like, it's above average, and I'll read another report and they'll say it's in its nascent beginning stages. So I don't know if it's just seeing not consistently or what's going on, but I mean, the reports of the control is better. The velocity has stayed the same. I thought was really, really interesting in the Longenhagen piece. They talked about he does like 4 sets of stretching exercises a day. Like, a big part of what he does to not get hurt is like flexibility. And I've spent probably close to a decade preaching about like athleticism at the pitching position to stay healthy. That it's like one of the most underrated things. Like, we think of, oh, pitchers don't need to be athletes, but a lot of the guys who are athletes tend to stay healthier. So I was like, well, that's an important thing to see with Spino. But I'm still not 100% sold. Personally, I think like Valera to me is clearly the top prospect in this system. I think I would consider Rocchio 2, Arias 3, and then probably like Espino is 4. So I'm a little bit against the crowd. Honestly, I mean, it really, I mean, I would put Nolan Jones ahead of Ty Freeman at this point in time. I would put a few guys. I think Lavastida is probably a top 10 prospect for them. So I'm a little bit different. I have talked about that on the show. I don't look at things the same way.
Yeah, and you know, the thing with the Spino, it's I totally see the variance in the projections, and it's because I think part of it is him. So his approach, he knows he has a very good fastball, and then he's got other pitches that are in varying states of development, and it feels like all he knows how to do right now is get you to chase. He sets you up with the fastballs, and then he gets you to chase something away. And I feel like he needs to work on that. And then, like you said, the physical concerns. He's not the same size, but I think about a guy like a Tim Lincecum, who has a max effort delivery, throwing a ton of velocity, and just can he stay healthy and can he do it for a long period of time? And I don't necessarily know if Espino's that guy, but
Former
the
Guardians
rankings are
draft
interesting.
pick, Tim Lincecum.
There you go.
He was the year before he was a top 10 pick. They drafted and made a hard run at him. But yeah, former Indians draft pick.
I don't
Tim
think I
Lincecum.
realized that.
It was in like the 40s. It was one of the they actually made a run at him. It was before the current slotting system, so they could they tried. They made he's one of there's some guys why am I blanking on the center fielder from Tampa who ended up not being what everyone thought he was going to be many years ago? But there's a whole bunch of guys that they didn't, Max Muncy, they drafted him, but they didn't really make a run at him. They made a run at Lincecum. They just failed.
And in just a second, I do kind of want to talk about some of the guys who they did get on the team and are part of this roster. But first, today's episode is brought to you by our friends at BetOnline. After months of playing, college basketball has finally picked the final four teams and will determine the national champion this upcoming week. And BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your betting needs, for all your sports info, from the odds, contest, player props. It's all there. They're your best spot for all the sports developments. And it's not just basketball. If you're not a college basketball fan, professional basketball is going on. They also have hockey. They have baseball stuff is out now. We keep getting emails every day about player props. Yeah. Who's going to hit the most home runs, comeback player, all that kind of stuff. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action, because BetOnline is where the game starts. And the thing that I don't understand or know about, I guess, about this Guardians team is how much help are they going to get from the farm system this year? Because you look at all these top prospects, and it's like Tyler Freeman's a guy everybody thinks is going to come up, and play second base around the All-Star break. You have a guy like Rocchio. He's going to start off in AAA. They may call him up in 23. It may call him up late this year. And I don't quite know how much help they're going to get. And some of the projections out there, and I want to get your input on this, some of the projections kind of have Cleveland somewhere around 78 or 79 wins and probably coming in third in the division behind the White Sox and the Twins.
So I think, personally, I think it's going to go White Sox, Tigers. I still don't buy the Twins pitching, but I think the Guardians are going to essentially be where they were last year, right around 500. They didn't lose anything, and that 500 team only had 16 starts to Shane Bieber. Aaron Savali missed 2 months. Zach Plesac missed a month and a half. Tristan McKenzie had to go to the minors because he was leading the majors in walk rate. He was so ineffective. Cal Quantrell wasn't a starter. They added Miles Straw. They get a full season there. And their number 2 hitter a year ago, Franmil Reyes, also missed a month and a half. So it was a team that was really beat up. They didn't lose anything. I mean, Blake Parker is probably the biggest loss they had, and he just signed as a non-roster invitee with the Cardinals to camp. So it's not like it was a huge loss. You're hoping that Steve Kwan, who, Saros called him the dark horse rookie of the year, who's really highly rated in Keith Law's ranks and in the Zips projection system. Zips has him at a projected runs created plus of over 110.
Oh, wow.
Which would be phenomenal. The projection systems love him. So if he steps up, that's a massive improvement over Bradley Zimmer, who started a ton of games out there. The revolving door of outfield mess. Josh Naylor, if he's healthy, is interesting, but he's never been productive yet. He's had a lot of fans get mad at me and they're like, well, he was turning a corner here in Cleveland. I'm like, well, he didn't turn that corner in San Diego. He hadn't turned it here yet. He was still below league average production. So we'll see. But I am curious to see. It's I think, Freeman with the labrum could be delayed. I don't think, but
Probably isn't
Rocchio's,
delayed. Yeah.
yeah, it's like Rocchio might pass him, but if Jimenez is playing well, it's like he's there. Arias, what do you do with him? He's ahead of both of them in the pecking order. At some point, do you like it? Just you're setting up all these shortstop prospects, and people don't want to trade any of them. But it's like if Jimenez nails down that position, you have to consider it. It's like you went out and he gets left as roadkill in a lot of people's projections, and it's like 2 years ago for the Mets, he was above a league average bat and a plus defender, and he's super young. He was one of the top 10 prospects in all of baseball. He's a higher rated prospect than anyone in the Cleveland system currently is, and it's not to say that they're not good prospects, but I'm just curious to see how they'll work. And again, Nolan Jones, people leave for dead, which is apparently going to be my expression for this podcast. I get one stuck in my head and keep going back to it, but he was just hurt at so many points last year, and he moved very quickly through the minors. He's probably going to be a platoon bat, but he looks like the heir apparent to Russ Branyan. Russ Branyan came up in the Guardian system in the late 90s, and it was, it's back before we had on base is really something we were using. It's like nowadays Russ Branyan would have been an everyday player instead of what he was. It's like Jones's power potential. He's probably never going to hit lefties, but you could put him as an interesting platoon at first base or something. So they're going to have to play the young players, and having missed out on all of the big trades, basically it comes down to if they do keep J-Ram, we're sitting here, 8-4 control. I'll throw a timestamp in. Nothing's official yet. If that contract goes through, it's kind of like play it to the deadline and see what you can get, see who maybe comes available and use this depth to go get someone. Personally, everything is so toxic with this fan base and the ownership situation. I would love to go see them add like Trey Mancini, even though he's just a rental, because you're going and like literally getting the best story in baseball, like one of the least toxic, maybe the least toxic potential, anything. Like
the dude beat cancer. It's a great story. Yeah.
It's like if you're going to overpay for someone for a rental, if they're playing well, it's like, go get him, like go do even more. Because I would love to see the city embrace this team. Right now the football team is really divided people. And I know, I get all these comments about the baseball team is divided people because of the name change, but the football team is doing it. And the basketball team is fun, but they've definitely faded hard of late. So, it's really a chance for the baseball team to step in right now and be a source of positivity when people are like, oh man, the Cavs were fun, but now they're beat up and they're, in the play-in instead of in the playoffs. And the football team with their situation, we do not need to dive into, but is enough to have a lot of people very upset. So it's really a chance to dive in and have a positive narrative, starting with J-Ram, and then just go out and add something, do something, show that you have been playing dead and that you're not actually dead.
Yeah. And for me, I'm just going to, like, no matter what happens, I get to watch these 5 pitchers and I get to watch Emmanuel Clase. And he's a guy that I thoroughly enjoy watching pitch. He's a guy, you see him on Pitching Ninja every single week. He's out there doing great stuff. So either way, going to be a fun team to watch, no matter what they do with the prospects. And like you said, so many shortstops, you have to think some of them are going to get moved either in deals or positions. I see, something like Arias going to third. I see Valera being like a right fielder or something. But definitely a lot of young talent. And I have a saying on my show that depth will always work itself out. Like, you can never have too much talent because somebody will get hurt, somebody will be ineffective. You will always have a chance eventually to let it sort itself out and let it play. But Cleveland is really putting that to the test with some of these infield prospects.
No, 100%. They got it. I'm glad that Ahmed Rosario is playing left field now. Finally, it drives me nuts. 2 years in a row they've waited so long to try him out there because he's not a good defender. But like, it's even beyond that. They just need to have open positions to try these young kids out.
Yeah. And in just a minute, we're going to finally have to have the J-Ram conversation. But first, today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Built Bar. We are passing spring break. We are on our way to the summer. So if you are trying to exercise to get in better shape, Swap your candy bars for Built Bars. It's the only protein bar. It's covered in 100% real chocolate. It tastes like a candy bar. All Built Bars are 130 calories, 17 grams of protein, 4 grams of sugar, and 4 net carbs. So go to Built.com, check out the list of all of the flavors. Jeff, I know you eat Built Bars all the time. What are your favorite flavors of Built Bars?
I've always liked the puffs, but I'm a marshmallow person. Like right now, the churro puff, like I don't have it open. I can tell you the churro puff was one of the favorites. They just did like I mean, they do fun things like they did Shamrock Shake in March for a time. Like that went quick. Banana bread sold out quick. Today for lunch, I had the equivalent, their white chocolate, which is like the Oreo. And then I had the eggnog, which was a seasonal flavor. I have an account, use that Locked 15. I always tell my listeners, Locked 15 saves you 15%. And then you start building up Built Bucks. So I order like 3 boxes at a time, and I start building up my Built Bucks. So I'm like saving $5 for my Built Bucks, 15% from the code. And yeah, I've been using this product for almost 3 years now, and I never grow tired.
There you go. So Built.com, promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off your order. That's promo code LOCKED15 at Built.com. And all right, it is 8:52 Central on Wednesday, March 30th. I just checked Twitter. There has been no Jose Ramirez extension or trade. So I guess we have to talk about it. His current deal, $11 million AAV in 2022, $13 million in 2023 on a club option. And if both of those are exercised, if this year and the club option goes through, he would hit free agency in 2024 at age 31. And a lot of the reports that I saw when I wrote this show up yesterday was they had been discussing not necessarily exact contract figures, but more of comparable players to help figure out a framework. And it feels like it's really tough to figure out who's a good comp for Jose Ramirez because he does so many things that a lot of other players don't do, especially at third base.
He's a complete player. He's got the third highest WAR since 2017 in the big leagues behind Mookie Betts and Mike Trout, of course.
I've heard they are good.
Yeah, I understand they're pretty decent players. And then, but and with both of those players, it's the same story, right? Like they are every facet of the game. And that's what Ramirez is. He's like probably one of the 5 best base runners in baseball. Like he gets first to third as well as anyone. He is, he is an excellent base runner. He's smart. He always seems to do the right thing. And his defense last year was the best it's been at third base. Mm-hmm. So you look at that, and it's funny to me how often I have to fight this. Like people want to tell me he's not the best third baseman in baseball, or that he is like not even top 3. And I'm like, you're insane. I do understand, like, if you want to look at just offensive production, I think his runs created plus in that same period is merely the 15th best in baseball. So he has the 3rd best WAR that is help supported thanks to his defense and excellent base running. His bat is only like the 15th best in all of baseball in that time. But
for $11 million.
Yeah. It's, it was
3.5 Max Scherzers. Sorry.
It was just an interesting deal. Like it's the same thing happened with Michael Brantley. Like I remember sitting there writing an article about why do they extend Michael Brantley? Like he is so utterly replaceable. And they signed that extension. And then Michael Brantley became Michael Brantley literally that year after they signed the extension. And they had him in this sweetheart deal. That's where they are with Jose Ramirez. This was all before he was Jose Ramirez, perennial top 5 MVP candidate.
Yeah.
So it's an amazing deal. And I'll be like, I think the nice thing about Jose knows himself. Like I remember covering the minors, and I always tell this story, and I don't mean it as like a negative on Jose, but it's just Jose being Jose. It's like he would have, they would try to get all the players to do like English language lessons just for dealing with media and everything else. And Jose would have his own separate time. And Jose didn't always show up for his time because Jose had better things to worry about, like baseball. Like he's like, if I'm good enough, I'll find a way to communicate. I'm going to focus in on my game. And that is Jose. And it's not like, again, that's not to like knock him. He had a central focus, and that was baseball. And he's really good at it for that reason. He made the right call. There's no doubt about it. And he's just been his own personality all the way coming up. I do have to laugh. There's so many fan bases that want him so badly. I've gotten a lot of angry Twitter combos. And I mean, even now, I saw someone tweeting out like a Blue Jays account, like, well, maybe they'll just sign him to an extension so he's easier to trade. I'm like, wait, what? No, that's not how this works. If he signs this extension, he's not leaving. He's not leaving. This is to stay there forever. and to essentially end up, one of the top 3 hitters. It's always hard because, it's like you got Tris Speaker and Nat Lajoie and those like early 1900s guys. But if you want to talk about like in the modern era, when it's all said and done, he's probably going to be the top hitter in the modern era in the history of this franchise.
Yeah, and when I was looking at like what a framework for that kind of extension would be, because I'm just going to work off of he's getting re-signed versus he's going to be traded. Let's not be negative about it. But my thought process, the 2 guys that I thought about when you look at age, you look at production, and he's better than them. But like the George Springer deal, 6 years, $150 million, and then Marcus Semien, like 7 years, $175. And the question I have when I look at that framework is like, I don't know if Cleveland pays that, because the largest individual guarantee in team history was $60 million. And so if that's what it takes to re-sign Jose Ramirez, does Cleveland do it?
So the one advantage that they have over those is, those are both the free agent deals, and anything they give Jose is buying out those 2 cheap years. And then honestly, like it's ownership isn't going to be here long. We all know that they've looked for minority ownership, that not part of part of the team is essentially sitting there, and I'm thinking the word arbitration, and I can never remember this word, where it just sits to the side in like a little area. The part that was owned by the now, man, I'm having an evening of blanking. The owner of the Royals, who used to own it, they put it over here to the side and like, okay, you're 30%.
It's like an escrow.
Escrow. Yes, essentially. So it's
I'm
like
a banker.
Okay, thank you. I cannot, but yeah, it's just there, and they're gonna this new ownership, if it hasn't been finalized, the talk is that anyone who buys a team is going to take over in 5 years. So if you're Dolan, it's like, hey, I can get all the positive publicity of this. I can backload the heck out of this contract. I can I can make Bobby Bonilla Day seem like a joke. It's like Jose Ramirez is going to be getting like $5 million a year for the next 50 years or something like that on like Jose Ramirez Day. It's going to be like that. It's going to be a lot of deferred money. I guarantee you it's going to be backloaded, and it's going to all be set up so it's that
it's the next guy's problem.
Yeah, it's the next guy's problem, and the next guy's, whoever it is going to be someone who, because I was the biggest supporter of the Dolans for a long time. Like I literally wrote a piece that appeared on the Dolans owned Sports Time Ohio site. Like they had their own webpage. It was like, we need to talk about your lack of attendance. And it was me just talking about why it's ridiculous and no one goes to games. And I was that person. Like I was waving the flag. I can't be anymore. Now it's like the complaints about how much this team loses just doesn't work when he's going to sell this team after owning it for 20 years and make $1 billion profit, or that when he sold that cable network, he got a bad yearly contract, but he also got, I think, $100 million as just a signing bonus for selling the TV contract. Like there's all these little things where he has made so much money off the team. And then you talk about like, enjoy him when people ask about Lindor, or, our best fans buy luxury boxes. I understand why there is such negativity. And I am looking forward to an ownership change. I just hope they keep their front office in place, because I think anyone who's intelligent knows that the best thing that Dolan has done is just let smart people stay there and get the heck out of the way. That's why they didn't lose, that's why they didn't lose Chernoff to the Mets, right? And, I get the guy. He was a Mets fan growing up. He was a very smart person, but it's nice being in Cleveland and knowing that you get to do your job and oversight is low and you can be comfortable. So I think that is the best thing that they do. And I'm hoping that it seems like this new ownership group, that's their MO to begin with. So I think they will do it. And I think, again, this way for someone like the Dolans, they get the best of all worlds. They get to sign this contract that no one thinks they would do, and then you don't have to pay for most of it.
There you go. All right. So if folks who listen to my show want more information about the Guardians, want to know more about that ownership change or an extension or all of that, where can they find you and follow you?
So I'm pretty easy. It's just Jeff MLB Draft. For those who don't know me, before I got this gig, I was the lead draft and prospect analyst for 24/7 and then Scout before that. 24/7 bought Scout, and then 24/7 got rid of baseball. So that's kind of my trajectory. I actually replaced Kylie at Scout back in the day. That's the shoes I had to fill. But it's I still do a lot of draft stuff as well. I'm hoping. I don't know if they talked to you. This is just, last year we did a draft show. So hopefully we can figure that out and do.
We are doing a draft show this year.
Okay. because I'm totally up for
Yeah.
that. We did a whole we did about 28 picks, but I was like, okay, we'll keep going. It was a lot of fun to do, and something I look forward to doing yet again.
Yep. And for folks listening to Locked On Guardians, I'm Lindsey Crosby from Locked On MLB Prospects. You can follow me on Twitter at Crosby Baseball. Follow the show on Twitter at Locked On Farm, and subscribe to Locked On MLB Prospects wherever you get your podcasts. Jeff, thanks a lot for coming on. I really appreciate it.
I know. Thanks for coming on and chatting. I'm sure we'll do some more stuff as draft season gets deeper. It's an interesting year, and I know we've had a lot of DMs already about some fun stuff. So there's that for both listening bases to look forward to.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot.